Welcome back, friends, to Mastering Etsy Print on Demand, the completely free course that I've created to help you be your own product boss from anywhere in just pockets of time. Grounded by years of small business experience, expert testing because I never preach what I haven't practiced, and crafted to suit anyone, no matter what part of the journey you're on, my goal is to show you the ropes, help you build out a strategic approach for print-on-demand success, and give you a results-based grip on driving sales using the SimplyPOD framework that I've developed and that this entire free course is based off of. In case we haven't met yet, hey there, friend. My name is Mandy. I'm a busy Midwest boy mama, former HR director turned full-time handmade small business entrepreneur, and builder of print-on-demand shops that altogether have reached almost six figures in less than a year, all while not having to touch a single product or ship anything out to a customer myself. I'm obsessed with sharing knowledge that simplifies the Etsy print-on-demand process so that truly anyone can feel empowered to start their own journey. Today, we are starting at the very top of our framework, which is the product. And so this module is all about mastering products, where we'll talk about print-on-demand partners, my personal recommendation, and who I use for my own print-on-demand shops. We'll walk through some very common product terminology that's important to know, as well as dive into product selection and a pricing strategy for your products once you've selected them. And as always, there will be homework at the end, so make sure you stick around. As we dive into print-on-demand partners, it's important to know that one size does not fit all. Deciding on a printing partner is typically one of the very first steps because that is where you can see the various product options that are available to sell. It's also the place where it can be so overwhelming as a new seller to navigate just the sheer amount of options and providers that are out there, which means you have options to look at before you even decide on a shop or know what you're selling. And there are a lot out there. So as we think about these options, I've listed out just a few of the ones that I have either tried out myself or know that are very successful partners to work with. Printify obviously is one of the main ones, and they are my go-to partner. They are known for having multiple providers within their network of printing options, and so that gives them a very large network of product options to select from. Printful and Guten are other large providers as well. They just have fewer offerings and the price points can sometimes be a little higher. Awkward Styles, again, has a variety of apparel and accessory items. They've also recently added jewelry offerings. Speaking of which, Shine On is one that is well known for their jewelry and watch selection. And then T-Launch, much like the rest, has a smaller variety of options, but they are known for having some unique products such as metal wall art, which has been a trending product on Etsy for a while now. So when we talk about who I use, I have personally chosen Printify after trying several options out there. And the reason is that I just keep coming back to them every time when I've tried others and just have not found the process as nice as Printify. Partners are more than just their products. Printify's customer service is phenomenal. They have a chat function as well as email, and they have a very robust help section for pretty much anything you might need to know how to do. They just have a great support mechanism for their sellers. They also have, and I will totally plug, their free Printify Rockstars Facebook group. It is a free group to join, but let me tell you folks, it is a goldmine of great information. If you're on a platform that doesn't have something like this, you are missing out. There is a great information and tips from other sellers that are in there. There are insider updates. The two admins that I know of that run it are phenomenal and very responsive, and it's a very active community with a ton of help. And As you start to sell, they also have what's called Printify Premium. It is their monthly subscription option. They also have an annual option. But as you start to get sales, it is a great option to keep products even lower, both for samples and orders. I do have a link and code in my description for Printify if you'd like to show premium for 30 days, but essentially it saves you 20% off on the cost of most products on their platform. It becomes a great money saver and it pays for itself. No matter who you choose, though, I recommend starting with just one partner integration to begin with. And you will often hear me use the term partner, and that's how you should be thinking about them, because your success is their success. Sure, issues come up, but the more you can partner with them and think of them as a partner with you, the better off that your relationship with them will be, and the more patience and understanding when things come up that are sometimes out of everybody's control. And also just remember that even reliable partners have bad days or growing pains. Again, they're running a business just like anybody else. And so if something comes up or if there's an issue, know who to contact for support. In the end, you need to choose the partner that's right for you, and you need to be able to work together to be successful. As you choose your print-on-demand partners, the other thing that I want to make sure is super clear is that not all partners use the same printing method, and it's important to know the key differences. So a lot of times with printing or with especially t-shirt and sweatshirt design, we think traditionally of screen printing where you're pressing ink in through a screen, or very commonly with vinyl made with Cricut or similar machines, or screen print transfers that are heat pressed onto garments. With print on demand, the experience is going to be very different, and that's because a different process is being used for the various products that are offered. For apparel, the most common form of printing is with direct to garment or DTG. This is where pigment inks are sprayed on and allowed to absorb into the fabric, giving it more of a distressed or vintage feel. It looks a little closer to screen printing than other methods, but it is very different and it behaves differently on different fabrics, and it behaves differently between things like t-shirts than it does on thicker fabrics like sweatshirts. The other very common process is all over print or AOP, which uses a method of sublimation. And that is a combination of printing and high heat pressure to actually fuse ink into the product so that they literally become one. These are typically done only on polyester clothing, and then other items such as mugs, phone cases, certain totes, and things like that. In these cases, because it becomes a one with the fabric and it's a different process, colors are often more truer and more vibrant, but they are typically long lasting. Both direct to garment and sublimation are pretty widely available because those are the two main methods with print on demand, and it allows this type of process to be quick and literally any design that you can think of for these processes. You will sometimes see embroidery offered by certain print providers. Typically, this is only going to be on things like sweatshirts, hats, certain totes, and there are quite a few limitations on colors and things like that because it is a very different method and it's more time consuming, so it's therefore not as efficient for many product providers to use this process. That being said, it is highly desirable because people like the more luxurious look and feel of embroidery, so it is still an option that's out there. And then finally, digital printing. This is the more common traditional method of like print to paper. So canvases, cards, posters, things like that are also options that are available with certain print on demand products. I say all of this not to overwhelm you, but just so that you know to look for these different terms as you are exploring products within your print provider's catalog of options. I've linked this in the description below in case you want to have it printed and readily available to refer back to. As you're exploring your print provider's website, you may be wondering how you find this type of information or filter if there are certain products or production methods that you prefer for your designs. So for example, here on Printify, they have dedicated categories for all over print. You can also search for USA constructed products. They also have a catalog with a full range of both eco-friendly and other different types of common product selections that sellers are frequently looking for. So with all over printing, you can see there's a wide variety of product options available. And then when you're looking just at the regular categories, so if we look at sweatshirts as an example, you'll have a lot of filtering options, whether you're looking for particular sizes or colors, or if you're looking for specific fulfillment locations, and you'll see this filtering method with other categories as well. So blankets are another common product that I really like to use, as well as one of their backpack options is one of my favorites, and I've talked about it in some of my TikTok videos. And you'll see here when it ships from a different country, you'll be able to see that when you click on the product as well as the rating of that print provider. And if you click on more info, that is where you'll see how much it costs for the item as well as shipping. So if you click on the shipping tab, we'll see the different countries, and then the production tab indicates the type of printing method that is used for this product, as well as how it is shipped to the customer. Keep in mind that all of the production partners within Printify will have different production time frames, and so you need to be aware of that so that you can accurately reflect that as you're selecting products and getting them listed. Fastest way to find that from Printify is to click on the Help Center button, and then if I scroll all the way to the bottom, I go to Network Fulfillment Status. So from here, I can actually look and see if there are any major updates, but usually I go here to check the status. This is particularly helpful during the holidays when things can get a little crazy. But when we click on this, I am a US based person, and so most of my providers are in the US. And so from here, I can see not only what the timeframes are for production, but if there are any delays and what the updated production times are. Now remember, these are production times, these are not shipping times. Most things, if in production partner is in the US, they'll be using the US Post Office, which can be anywhere from 2 to 5 business days. But if you're using an overseas partner, you're shipping to the US, keep in mind that that can add anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks to the shipping time. So just keep that in mind, because again, as you start to select products and build them as listings, you'll want to be aware of this information. Now, with all of these product options, how does one possibly choose what they want to have in their shop, what to start out with, what makes the most sense? As you might have imagined, my motto is keep it simple. With all of the options that are out there, you're bound to feel overwhelmed at some point, and that's totally normal. Just remember to breathe and just take it one step at a time. I recommend starting with just 1 to 2 product categories. Start with just sweatshirts, or maybe start with sweatshirts and just t-shirts, or maybe t-shirts and mugs. Pick 1 or 2 of those categories and start there. That way your mind isn't overwhelmed with not only design choices and product choices, but you're not overwhelmed with all the categories and sizing and things like that that go along with those differences. So keep it simple and order samples with your designs on them so that you get comfortable with the process, so that you can see and feel it for yourself and be able to then articulate and communicate that to your customers for their expectations as well. As you identify designs that sell, you can then add on from there. So if you find a design that does really well on a t-shirt and you think it would translate really well to a mug, or you can alter it slightly, do that and add it on. But get comfortable with 1 or 2 categories at a time and then grow from there. If you're looking for some tried and true bestsellers, particularly within the apparel space, because there are so many more options between brands and styles and colors and providers, the 3 that I recommend and historically do well for most sellers I've listed here. So the Gildan 18,000 sweatshirts, these are your very traditional common sweatshirts that are out in the marketplace. They are durable. Customers typically like them pretty well. They are a great starting place for sweatshirts. Gildan 64,000 is actually my personal choice over the more traditional Gildan 5,000, which is your run-of-the-mill average unisex t-shirt. The 64,000 soft style t-shirt, as its name indicates, is softer. So it's still the Gildan durability. It's still at an affordable price point, but it's a much more softer, luxurious feel to it. The only downside is that there are fewer color options because there are fewer providers that offer it. But it's a great option if you're just looking to keep your color options simple. The other very common t-shirt that's out there that is widely used and loved by many is the Bella and Canvas 3001 t-shirts. These are going to be the t-shirts that both handmade, hand-printed, and print-on-demand sellers alike love to use because there are so many color options, and quite a few customers do recognize that Bella and Canvas name as being slightly higher end. I personally find that they can be a bit thinner and they are very long and narrower in the torso. So I personally find that some customers aren't a huge fan of that, but it totally depends, and believe me, there are a bajillion bestsellers out there that use Bella and Canvas. So again, it is considered a tried and true bestseller as an option for apparel. With all of these, again, they are using that direct-to-garment or DTG printing method. Keep in mind, DTG behaves differently on sweatshirts versus t-shirts and light versus dark. The only way to best see that is to order samples so that you know exactly what that looks like and exactly what those differences are. The other products that I like to highlight are those that are a little outside the box. One of them is what's actually labeled as a diaper backpack in Printify. That is actually one of my favorite products because it is super durable. I've done a ton of videos on my TikTok about it, and I absolutely love it because I think it can be used for so many other things other than just diapers. I have a son who is many years beyond the diaper stage, but he absolutely loves it. I've taken it to events. These are awesome, awesome backpacks. The other is the Velveteen Minky Blanket. I'm looking around my house right now, and we've got at least 4 that I can see right off the bat because I absolutely adore these. I only use it one-sided. They have a 2-sided printing option. They are super soft and they are just phenomenal quality and printing. And then the other item that I really like is the Jumbo Canvas tote bag, also from Printify. These actually come from Canada, and even though I am in the US and most of my customers are in the US, they do a phenomenal job of getting everything shipped out right away, and it still arrives within a very reasonable amount of time. And there's no extra customs or anything like that. All of these are available from Printify and linked in my description. And all of these have the opportunity to be designed for a variety of niches and for you to really get creative with how you come up with the different products for the audience that you're trying to attract. Whether it's teachers or pet owners or campers or fitness gurus, there are so many options and ways to use these outside of the box products and get creative with your shop. The other thing that I just want to highlight is managing customer expectations. I talk about this in a few different modules that are coming up, but these points are worth mentioning more than once. As it relates to working with a printing partner and different printing processes, you need to manage customer expectations. If you don't, it can result in negative reviews, and that is something we definitely want to avoid when possible. One way to do that is to indicate in your listing the printing method that is used. whether it's direct to garment or sublimation or embroidery. Be clear about the design and the process that's used so that your customer isn't surprised when it shows up. You don't want them to see a simple design with just letters or a cute cursive font on it and think because another seller has it in embroidery that yours is embroidered. You don't want that to happen. You want them to know exactly what they're getting. So be clear on those expectations, because sometimes customers will assume everything is either vinyl or screen print, or they might think it's embroidery. And so if something else shows up and they weren't expecting it, that can negatively impact their experience and translate into a negative review. Again, I find this more specifically with a direct to garment. It does have, as I've said before, more of that vintage kind of distressed appearance. This is totally a normal thing and to be expected, and it's still a great quality. But you need to be able to talk about that positively in your listing in case your customer's not expecting it, because it does, especially on sweatshirts, look a little bit different. The other thing that I want to point out is to make sure your shipping profiles are accurate. Again, because you are relying on a third party to ship and fulfill those orders for you, you need to make sure that you're following their shipping estimates that they have listed on the website so that you can accurately reflect that in your shop. I actually recommend adding an extra day or two buffer just to ensure in case there's any delays. It really, really helps on that end of things. So just as a quick example, here's an actual snippet from one of my listings that uses direct to garment printing. You can see that I include care instructions. I actually list this in my FAQs and the automated message that they get after ordering. So I include that in a couple places. I also talk about the process briefly and what it looks like on the fabric itself, because these are mostly sweatshirts that I sell. And I talk about how it's going to look and feel slightly different. Again, a lot of people are familiar with terms like screen printing and vinyl, especially vinyl. They know it to have more of that kind of thicker, rubbery feel. So if you can compare it to something that they're more familiar with, you'll have a better chance of helping them understand what they're getting. And then I also articulate that colors and sizes compared to the screen for the design and the fit itself can be different. So if they've got any concerns, I want them to know how to connect with me via Etsy. So once you've got your products, an idea of what you're planning on selling within your shop, then you need to figure out your pricing strategy. And we need to make sure you're actually making a profit here, because that is the goal, folks. In case we haven't made that clear, you want a shop that is making you a profit. So a few things to consider with this. The biggest is that there is a huge difference in handmade versus print on demand. As someone who can literally speak on both sides of that line, I want to be clear that the profit margins that you will see in comparison between the two are different. That is normal. There is no right or wrong there, but they are different, and you need to be aware of that as you're going into this. I run a 6-figure handmade business. I've had that for several years, and my profit margins typically run closer to about the 70% mark for my handmade business. But remember, I'm doing all of the work there. I'm doing all of the making. I'm doing all of the packaging. I'm doing all of the shipping. All of that falls to me as the owner of a handmade business. Whereas with print on demand, you'll typically be averaging closer to about 20 to 30% as an actual take-home profit margin, as long as you're setting up your prices correctly. And with print on demand, the heavy lift is being done by somebody else. So that is what you are paying for by having that smaller margin. And quite frankly, 20 to 30% profit in any business is still a good profit. Sometimes we look at these profit margins for print on demand and say, that doesn't seem like very much. But think about it, guys. You're doing work on the front end, but the print on demand provider is doing all of the heavy lifting for you. I can't stress enough how much of a heavy lift it is to do the fulfillment and shipping. So in my mind, I get super excited by this process because I love that I can do the fun design work and I'm still making a pretty decent profit at the end of the day. The other thing that I want to make sure you're accounting for as you're setting a pricing strategy is to build in a capacity for discounts. You need to be thinking about, do you want to be able to offer thank you discounts? Do you want to be able to offer abandoned cart discounts? If you do, you need to build in a pricing structure that has the capacity to handle discounts and still have you make a profit at the end of it. One way to do that is considering something like a Printify premium subscription. It's their monthly offering that allows you to save 20% on many of their product offerings. There's a link and coupon code in my description for 30 days to try it for free. And the thing is, yes, it's a monthly cost, but it pays for itself if you're averaging anywhere between 8 to 10 orders per month, depending on what you're selling, depending on what your price points are, which means all sales after that in a given month are truly a savings and directly improve your profit margins. So that, again, is something to consider, not required by any means, but is one way for you to help increase your profit margins as you start to make more sales. And another strategy to potentially consider is that you can start with slightly lower prices in the beginning and then increase. So if your focus in the beginning is getting traffic and getting sales so that you can then get reviews, which then translates into higher ranking, then certainly having slightly lower prices is one way to do that so that you can be competitive with other sellers in the marketplace selling something similar to what you are offering. It can help you rank faster to get those sales, and it is a tactic that many have used successfully. Just make sure you're not racing to the bottom. That is not the goal, to be the absolute lowest that's out there, especially when you think about the fact that you are competing with handmade businesses who, as I said, have higher profit margins and can afford to keep their prices lower because of how those businesses run. So keep that in mind. Don't price yourself too low. You should, again, still be making a profit, but just know that it is completely reasonable to start lower. And then as you start to get momentum and as you start to identify things that are selling and working, you can start to increase the value of your products. Along with that, design value will sell. At the end of the day, a desirable design in a good niche will sell. You would be shocked at some of the prices that some of my sweatshirts have sold at when I've accidentally forgotten to turn my daily sale on. Now, I don't inflate my prices astronomically, but I do price my items in a way that allows me to run decent sales. But at the end of the day, and my point in this is, if your designs are desired by the market that you are targeting, they will sell. People like unique items. They like things that speak to them, that they can relate to. Don't feel like you have to price yourself at the bottom if you go in with good designs and feel confident in what you are creating. The other component that goes along with the pricing strategy is this whole realm of free shipping. There are lots of opinions out there. There's pros and cons and everything in between. Should you or should you not? Well, there is no clear-cut answer for this because customers aren't clear on whether they like it or not. They are quite honestly split. Some buyers, if you ask them, absolutely prefer to see a lower price because they know that there's a shipping cost and they factor that into their buying decision. Whereas the retail psychology with other customers is that they would rather pay a little bit more and see that $0 shipping cost in the listing and get that little free shipping tag. Because again, it's a whole retail psychology thing. At the end of the day, Etsy boosts listings with free shipping. So bear that in mind. And regardless of whether or not you choose free shipping, make sure you price your items accordingly. If you are offering a free or reduced shipping, you have to account for that in your cost of the item that you are charging for the customer, because regardless of what you charge the customer, your print provider is charging you for the actual cost of that item, and they're charging you the cost of shipping that item to your customer. If you aren't accounting for and building those prices into your item, and offering free shipping, you will lose money, period. Moral of the story, carefully price items and make sure you're not losing money. I personally build in shipping costs into all of my prices. That way I never have to worry about taking a loss on any of my items when they sell, either due to free shipping or a discount. And I'm also taking advantage of that Etsy boost from having free shipping turned on. Again, it is entirely a personal choice for your shop and what makes sense for you. The moral of this is, regardless of what you choose, price your items appropriately to account for any of those potential costs. Which brings us to my actual strategy for my shops. As promised, I've got behind the scenes looks at my shop that I run using the same methodology and structure that I apply to all of the shops that I run. Like most Etsy sellers and coaches, I don't share my big moneymaker shop, and that is because there are a ton of copycats out there, and I don't want it to throw off my ranking either by having lots of people going out and looking with no intention of buying, because most of you all are probably not my target audience. That being said, I feel very strongly about being able to show you a real shop with real sales, with a real setup, using my exact methodology so that you can see it, so that things don't feel hidden or behind something that you're not quite sure if you've got it set up. That is why I created a shop this year specifically for being able to do tutorials just like this, for being able to show you exact setups so that you can literally follow along, look over my shoulder, and see exactly what an Etsy shop setup can look like in order to be successful. So from a pricing standpoint, let's walk through what my typical strategy looks like. I like to use, as I said, the Gildan 64,000 soft style. So I have some products that are in t-shirts, and so typically what I will do is, from the product page, I take a look at first which provider I want to use, and typically I look at a variety of factors of their ratings as well as their initial price and shipping points, because sometimes that can be an indicator of where I want to start. And I also look at color selections. So for t-shirts, I often like to use Monster Digital, and sometimes I will switch between that and SwiftPOD, which is my other primary provider. SwiftPOD has a lower price point, but I like to offer the cream color version of t-shirts sometimes. And so let's take a look at Monster Digital. So we can see here that the pricing starts at $805 with the shipping at $475. But I want to click into the more details first to make sure I've got all of the right information. And now from here, you can see that there are actually different price points based on color as well as size. So that is an important detail that you need to know as you're looking at pricing strategy, is that particularly with apparel or even for blankets, if there are different sizes, there will be cost differences. And so you need to dig in and make sure that you've got all of that information available. And then I also look at the shipping tab for that, because depending on where I want to ship to, I primarily do United States and Canada. I want to be able to keep in mind how much shipping will cost, because for US shipping in my shop, I offer free shipping. And so as we get into an Etsy calculator, we need to make sure that we know this information so that we can plug that in. And so then once I have that information, I'm going to then look at a product. So I'm going to actually click into one of mine so that you can see a little easier how that works. So let's grab one of these t-shirt listings. And when I then look at the product, so this is when I set everything up, and we'll talk about this more in the shop setup video, the first bonus video. But I want to take you down to the pricing section, because this is how I price my products to account for those variances, and I'll tell you why. So for these t-shirts, you can see that this amount right here is the cost that Printify will charge me for these shirts. Notice there's no shipping information here, so that was information that I needed to take note of. And then you'll see that I have a profit margin set at 65%. Typically, I float anywhere between 60 to 65, but I have found the most success in terms of meeting the market for value, as well as not over or underpricing while still making a profit. That 65% tends to do really well. Now, I want to make it really clear that 65% is not really your profit. And these numbers right here are not your real profit. And that is because Printify has no idea what Etsy is charging you for fees or offsite ads or anything like that. And so this is just an estimate. And so what you need to be able to do is, as you're pricing products, always use a profit calculator to make sure that you've got it set up correctly. And so here's an example where if we set up this price, so it's calculated that it's going to show in Etsy the price of $23. I like to use Etsy Hunt just as a really quick profit calculator. I also have my own in a spreadsheet available as part of my Patreon membership, but just for a quick free tool, you go to the Etsy fee calculator on etsyhunt.com, and essentially all you're doing is plugging in your numbers. So if the material costs are $805 and the shipping costs, I believe, are $495, and it's saying a sale price of $23, that means that the estimated profit is $736, and that is then showing you kind of how all these are calculated. It's taking into account the listing fee and the transaction fee and all of those other things associated with Etsy. It's doing that for you so that you can see you're actually making a profit. And for a 32% margin, this would be really good. But we want to see if we can build in, again, a capacity for discounts. So say we want to be able to run a sale for 20% off periodically. We can do that, and that's an absolutely great way to start getting some traction with your shop and to get some sales coming in. Just keep in mind that that is then going to lower your profit for that item. So if we wanted to, say, run a sale for 30% off, that means we're only going to be making $1 or so per transaction. Or if we wanted to keep it a little bit lower, we could go to that 15% discount range. That just gives you an idea of what to expect with actual profit, assuming that you are charging free shipping. Now, if we were to not charge free shipping and work that back in with their cost, you can see it goes up significantly. However, customers typically aren't going to pay $23 and then another $5 on top of that for shipping for a t-shirt. Depends on your customer, depends on your design, but a lot of times customers want to see that free shipping, especially on a t-shirt, for some of those lower value items. And so I typically build in that free shipping just to make sure I've got it covered. Then no matter what I choose down the road, I always know that I'm still making a profit and then I've got my costs covered. I also want to make note here that you can also factor in offsite Etsy ad fees. And so we'll talk about this a little bit later in terms of Etsy marketing, but just know that there is also this option. If you are a new shop, you can turn these on. It's on by default. And you can turn it off, but once you hit 10K in sales, it'll automatically be on and it'll be at the 12%. So just know that that again is another area to be aware of in terms of how you set your profit. And then when we think about pricing, and again, why I said I use a percentage profit margin is because if I were to set all of these at the same price of $23, let's use that example, but the price of a larger size, let's use the 3XL is $10.17. If I plug that in, I want to make sure this is an even comparison, so I'll turn that back off. If I turn that back off, then you'll see that right out of the gate, even with a lower discount, it really eats into your profit margin significantly. So that is why I do vary and just keep that flat percentage no matter what. Now, there are a lot of shops and a lot of sellers that simply just go for a straight price and don't use a percentage, and that's totally okay too. For me, it's just easier and just the way my brain works and wants to keep things nice and clean on the back end for pricing. It just works out a lot cleaner to set this as a percentage, and then I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to keep going back and recalculating. I just know that as long as I'm using a set percentage, I'm going to have my costs covered and I'll have a profit at the end of it. And so using that example, you can see that if we used that lower price, that would be our profit margin. But again, with this higher amount set, if we plug that in then as the sale price with a discount on it, you can see that it brings that profit back up. Again, it's t-shirts, so you can expect for these to be lower in terms of profit, but this is how I use my pricing strategy for pretty much every product that I offer in pretty much all of my shops. I will say that with t-shirts, because the profit margins tend to be a little bit lower, that is also why I tend to very strategically offer more sweatshirts inside of my shop versus t-shirts, and that is because I can typically then run a higher sale and still get profit, and sweatshirts tend to be not quite as overly saturated. And so typically what I'll do, and why you will see t-shirts in my shop, is because usually customers have made a request for a t-shirt design, and so then I will offer them and create them and just have that be a standard listing. But typically my default for most designs is to start as a sweatshirt and then go from there. And that brings us to the end of our very first foundational corner. Our goal was to master products, and so we've walked through a variety of topics related to that in this module so that we can start to build on that foundation of those 3 key areas of products, SEO, and design, and start to get confident with the basics and feel ready to build on that so that we can have sustainable success and start layering in other supports like consistency, value, and traffic once we've mastered those basics. As promised, we've got some homework to do. Remember those items that you circled from Module 1. These were hobbies, occupations, and topics that you know about or love to do. You went through, listed those out, and then you went out to Etsy and you circled items that when you did a search on Etsy either had items that had bestsellers or items that had popular now. And what that did was give us an idea of topics that are either trending on Etsy or doing well on Etsy and actively selling. Those are important things to know as part of our research. So with those topics that we circled, we're going to take those and list them out. I've linked a planning worksheet for free in the description for you. And then for each of those topics, we're going to choose 1 to 2 product types for each topic. 1 to 2. That's it. Remember, our goal is to keep it simple. And then identify your preferred provider for each of those products. And as you're going along, start identifying what those price points are and thinking about what your pricing strategy will be and what you're considering. Whether you're going to set them at an actual flat price or if you want to set a specific profit amount, be thinking about that within this exercise. And with that, looking forward to getting into our next module, which is SEO. That is going to be integral for your shop and a really important topic. So make sure that you come back for that one. We've got lots of juicy details to spill on that, and I'm excited to share it with you. Make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you on the next one.